We've got Scott Carpenter from International Shooting Supplies, also currently the president of the CCFR. How's it going, Scott?
Great, Rod. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for coming. All right. We're going to talk about the hunt that I just went on and how I got my first big game animal. And so we went up to the Peace region of British Columbia to a friend of yours farm. Why don't you tell us about where we were?
Guy who's a customer and a friend of mine who has a few thousand acres worth of grain farm in the North Peace region. And he's got a lot of elk and deer and stuff on his property. And his elk herd's been growing really steady over the last few years. He's sort of become inundated with cows. And I think that's sort of a problem that a lot of farmers and ranchers and whatnot are having in the Peace region. So the province has opened up not just a bull season, they've gone to a 3-point or better bull, but they've also opened up a cow season. And so for the last couple of years, he's been inviting myself and a couple of my friends up to take cows specifically out of the herd for him. So it's what we would refer to as a bit of a management hunt. We're trying to trim the cow population so that the population of the elk in general doesn't expand so quickly. So the hunting's a little different up there compared to the interior. I mean, in the interior, as you noticed on our bear hunt this spring, we do a lot of hiking around and driving around. Whereas in the Peace, which is primarily an agricultural zone, we do a lot of stand hunting and blind hunting and whatnot. It's a bit of a different type of hunt. It's a long drive to get there, so it's nice to be able to sit a little bit. We have a chance to do some walking and some hiking around too if we want, but primarily we're hunting out of blinds and out of tree stands. So when we got there the night before the cow season opened, we just did a quick walk and drive around the property just to see where the blinds were and made a plan for the next morning, and got up the next morning and got set into our blinds. So there was a lot of elk around, so I knew the chance was pretty good that we were going to see game pretty early in the morning. And like last year, it did disappoint. So we got you on your elk pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, well, I was certainly happy with the scenario where we didn't have to hike all over mountains, 10, 15, 20 kilometers a day up and down. But how it kind of panned out was we got up at 10 to 5 or whatever, had our coffee. We're out of the shack by 5:30. While it was still dark, we went to the specific blind in this wide open field, got up there. And then I think it was, 40 minutes and we spied a small herd?
Yeah, so in BC, we're allowed to start hunting an hour before sunrise and as long as an hour after sunset. Normally it's still dark at that time, so we just try and get into our blinds at that time. It's really too early to hunt, so we just sit there and wait until the light starts to flood into the field. About the time that it got bright enough to see everything down at the other end of the field, which is about 1 kilometer away, is a pretty long piece of hayfield, the elk started to sort of pour in at the opposite end of the field. And normally what happens, in my experience in that situation, is that they kind of drift back and forth between timber. So I wasn't really sure if they were going to come up the middle of the field straight towards us, because they had about 1 kilometer to cover to get to us. So we just chirped on a cow call a little bit, puts them at ease. They can hear it. They think there's other elk maybe over the rise feeding in the field. And instead of drifting through the field, they actually traveled up the field towards us. We had to wait for a while because they don't come quickly. They just feed and listen and feed and listen and watch. And then once they got to within about 150 to 200 yards, we were able to select a mature cow, and the rest is history.
Yeah, well, it was a couple of surprising things. It was great because they kept coming towards us on our left-hand side. And then they got to the range around 200 yards. And then they turned left, which put them right across our blind. Yeah. Just under 200, I think.
It was like God had a little hand and think what was going on there. He was like, okay, boys, here you go. We're just going to turn them right here, right now. And we're going to give you your shot.
Well, you knew I did the work last time around, right? Like
you did.
Went 3 days, got nothing.
Yeah, it was a tough hunt last time for a bear hunt. Did a lot of walking, put on a lot of miles to not really see too much. So it was nice to see a lot of game this time around and to see things sort of work out the way we hoped they would work out. It's hunting and not killing for a reason. You never know really what's going to happen, but fate was sort of on our side. Shortly after, we had one elk down, and you made a great shot at about 150 to 200 meters, hit the ground instantly. And I was sort of expecting the rest of the herd to just beat it.
They didn't.
And they didn't. They just kind of stood there. Yeah, there was a bunch of little bulls further back, about another 150 yards back. And the lead cow that you shot had another cow with her, and a little bit smaller, but a mature cow. And she just got a little spooky, and she kind of started to trot a little bit. And the next thing you know, she stopped right almost probably 50 yards behind where your cow dropped. You're like, are you going to shoot that thing? And for a second, I'm like, man, that's a lot of work first thing in the morning. But I'm like, here's the opportunity. I guess we better. So next thing you know, we have a second cow down, probably 60 seconds apart from one another. So yeah, we created a lot of work first thing in the morning, but it was productive. It sort of worked out the way it was supposed to. I was pretty pleased, actually.
Yeah, well, it couldn't get easier. We had a tractor. Went back, got the tractor, strung him up on the tractor, drove him back. And I had a lot of people asking me like, oh, did you get the shakes? Or, how did you feel about it? That's my first big game animal. I didn't grow up like that. And, I was okay with the whole thing. I really didn't feel much because I knew I was going to eat the animal because I really wanted the meat. You know what I mean? There was no hesitation or anything. The only thing I found that was just took a little bit of getting used to was the processing. You get there, that creature was alive a little while before, you're opening it up, pulling all of its innards out and removing moving its head and its legs. And so, you know, by the time we were finished the first 2 animals, because there were other people there too, I was okay. But I was like, oh man, that's pretty gory.
Yeah, it's a little shock to the system if you've never done it before.
No,
right?
no.
So, and an elk is a large animal. It's not like skinning a rabbit or something like that.
Cleaning fish, right? Clean fish.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a large mammal, and it requires a tremendous amount of work. And yeah, it's a little bit of getting used to, but you did really well. So I think you'll make a good hunter. I think you'll have a good time in the future pursuing deer and bear and everything else as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think I'll be going waterfowl hunting in the fall here in the next month or 2. We'll see if I can conjure up a little video of that. But yeah, I'll definitely be doing it next year.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of fun.
Anyway, we are out of time, so I appreciate it, Scott, and a successful hunt.
Yep.
Until next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod.
Don't forget, download right now. Download the CCFR mobile app for free on the Apple Store and Google Play. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Share the podcast. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.